Friday morning. I hope that you've had a great week. I'm just going to start it with this has just been a planting season of challenges. Let's just call it what it is. And even though we may be challenged, whether we're getting in the field a little bit later than we'd like to, or maybe now it's time to get in the field with a post pass, and now we're dealing with issues of soil or moisture and mud, and we're just not able to get in. We have to talk about how are we going to manage these challenges so that we still have the best outcome. So today we're going to specifically talk about what are adjuvants doing to our spray solutions, which ones do we need to be adding, and let's be honest, let's talk about are they worth the money and do we actually need them? So join me as we head back up to the house and we're going to dig in to adjuvants. When we keep thinking about our herbicide programs, no matter what your tank chemistries are, or which adjuvants you're going to run, what part of the country you're in, or even what crop, things can get complicated in a hurry. And it doesn't take long, even just looking at our adjuvants and the list that we're going to have on there, to start seeing words like carboxylic acid and polyoxyl ethylates. What do these words even mean, and why are we putting them in our tank? Well, it's all about increasing the effectiveness of our herbicide program. When we think about what our adjuvants do, whether it's going to be those acidifiers, the AMS, like we talked about a few weeks ago, or our NISs, those non-ionic surfactants, or maybe all of our different types and classes of crop oils, what they're helping us do is overcome challenges. That's how I like to look at it. It's the challenges as we go from the jug to the spray tank to the plant and the leaf itself. And we have lots of challenges. It might be the wind speed, it might be the temperature, it might be too much humidity, it might be a lack of humidity. You guys get the idea. We have challenges after challenges, but the plant leaf itself creates a whole other series of challenges. Really, it's the idea of how are we going to keep our herbicide on the plant leaf, and then how are we going to get the herbicide in? Because when we think about our plant leaves, and as we can see right here, we know that this epidermis, right, this top layer is covered in a waxy cuticle. Now, some plants have a thicker waxy cuticle. Some of our plants have less of a waxy cuticle. If we move into a dry time, we know the waxy cuticles can get thicker. So what are our adjuvants really going to be doing? Well, the adjuvants are designed to help spread out the droplets that we're going to be spraying on here, giving us more surface area on the leaf, which allows more diffusion into that leaf for the herbicide to act. And sometimes we're going to talk about oils, which are really going to just heat up that herbicide mix and help us burn through, which is really just the idea of dissolve away this waxy cuticle. And again, as we think about all of the different options we have, whether it's your herbicide program or we're looking at the adjuvants, we need to make sure that we understand what they're doing. We need to know that we put the right one in the tank at the right time. We need to make sure we're reading the label on the herbicide and the adjuvant, because after all, the label is law. But I thought it was also good for us to take a step back and just see what do they do. And so let's start fairly simple. A lot of us are running like a 90-10 NIS, right? What is this idea of an NIS? Well, an NIS just is a non-ionic surfactant. It's a really fancy and a really long word to just simply say it has no charge. And the idea behind this is that it's going to spread out our water droplet across the surface of the leaf, giving us this idea of a better coverage on the leaf surface, which is going to help the herbicide penetrate through. So we just went real high scientific here in the lab or / my wife's kitchen, however you want to look at it. Don't let her know what we're doing again this week. But we just got some styrofoam plates because they have a nice slick surface on them, really similar to our weed leaves and that waxy cuticle. And then we went through and we just mixed up a couple of different adjuvants. Now, we're not going to go all the way across the spectrum, but I really wanted us to focus on what happens and do I really need to be using adjuvants in my spray tank? So we just add a dye, don't really pay attention to the color, but it allows us to see what's going to happen. And this first one that we have here is water, that's just in the blue. I wanted us to give an idea of what would happen if we just went out, we tank mixed our herbicide program without any type of adjuvant, no NIS, no oil, in terms of how is that going to cover the plant leaf. So we're going to go ahead and back this off, and we're just going to put a couple of drops down here on the plate. And what I want you to notice about when we put these couple of drops of water down is that the water beads up and pulls itself together. And the reason that that water beads up and pulls itself together is the water molecules are actually polar. They have a slightly positive side and a slightly negative side. It's why it makes it a really good solvent, but it also causes that water to pull itself back up. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, when we look at this, if we were to think I have my herbicide in here, I have very little leaf coverage. In fact, I'm stacked right on top of it, and we've all seen it before. What would happen if that leaf were at a slight angle? It would run right off, and our coverage would not last very long. So then what we did is we came in and we just mixed up a really simple 90-10 non-ionic surfactant. Again, remember this idea of a non-ionic surfactant just simply means it has no charge. But it does an interesting thing when we put an NIS in our spray solution. And what happens is the NIS actually has a hydrophilic head, saying it really likes that water, and then it has a hydrophobic tail or a lipophilic tail, simply saying that it sticks up out of the water. And what happens when we do that is it causes our water to spread when we apply it to the waxy cuticle, or in this case, our styrofoam plate. So we're going to put a few drops down. And the first thing that we begin to see when we put our few drops down is that it begins to spread out much quicker than when we just had the water. In fact, if you get down low and you look at it, we can see the water mounding up still, and our 90-10 ionic surfactant is spreading out across the surface. The idea that it's giving us better leaf coverage. Now, one of the nice things that you've probably seen about a lot of your adjuvants is we can start to get kind of multiple features going to be put into one. And so then I took another product, it's our Fuse product, and it is a non-ionic surfactant and an acidifier. If you remember from a few weeks ago, remember a lot of our post-application herbicides really like to be in slightly acidic water. It helps them perform better, it gives them a longer half-life, and we still want to have that non-ionic surfactant. So we're going to come in and we're going to apply water that had a non-ionic surfactant and an acidifier. And again, what we see is that it's quickly spreading out. It's not staying all attached to itself, which is going to give us a better leaf coverage, which should also then go in and help us with the idea of a better herbicide control. Now, we can also pair these with crop oils. We aren't going to go ahead and do that right now, but we can pair our non-ionic surfactants, or we can look at having more of an idea of a crop oil with a non-ionic surfactant, which is really going to help us increase that under the right circumstances with the right herbicides, because it's actually going to work to penetrate down through that leaf. But it all boils down to what are the challenges that you're facing as we go from the jug to the sprayer to the leaf. What does your herbicide label call for? And then also, what does the adjuvant label say in terms of the rates that we want to include it? So again, when we think about production this year, we have plenty of challenges. Some of us would call them problems, right? But there are solutions available to really help us work through those problems. I hope that you have a great week. I know that we're kind of getting finally moved through the field. We're probably needing some heat units for things to really take off, but I appreciate you watching.